budget projections, cash flow analysis, simulations, contract scenarios. These are all new tasks that GMs will be faced with on July 1st. Why? Because in this new era of college sports, every dollar matters. And GMs are expected to manage these dollars because GMs are now the CFOs of their teams overnight. And as the CFO of their team, it's more than just about acquiring good talent. Teams must now acquire talent within budget. So that's why we built Dropback from the ground up for the revenue sharing era, to help GMs and their administrative staffs save hours through our financial grade software. I'm pumped to dive into Dropback's budgeting, versioning, and cash flow tools that directly integrate with our entire suite of offerings. So let's dive into it.
Now, 3 tabs we'll be talking about today are going to be our budgets tab, our roster tab, which we're on right now, and then our payments cash flow tab. Obviously, the heart of every strategy is built into the budget. How much are we spending, when, and from where? And this page, like most of the Dropback product and ecosystem, is highly customizable. There are no pre-described templates, there's no pre-described parameters, and there's no form-based fill-outs. All you do is you take your strategy to Dropback and implement it how you see fit to your unique needs of your athletic department. So as we see here in this demo team example, we're currently on football, and the football team has decided to have 3 budget pools. They did this by clicking the Add New button, and they went through the entire budget pool building experience where they named their budget pool. They decided how often the budget pool refreshes. So does the amount change annually, semesterly, monthly, etc. They decide when it starts and stops, and then they ultimately decide how often it pays out. Sometimes we do one lump sum payment, sometimes it's weekly, bi-weekly, etc. That's all customizable for every single budget pool. And you can see here that in this example, 2 have been added. There's been a revenue sharing budget pool, and then an NIL enhancements budget pool, which might be an approach to bonuses, or again, however the athletic department wants to approach this topic. These 2 budget pools are both sub-budget pools underneath a broader pool called the football rev share bucket. This was actually given to us by our administrator. And so we have an entire administration view as well. That is the high-level admin purview for all RevShare Sports on Dropback. And this would be the command center for those administrators. As we can see here, these are again, all budget pools created by the administrator, the high level budgeting pool amounts. So again, that 20.5 million cap. And then those are broken down into allocatable budget pools across the football team, the basketball team, and the other teams that you might want to do revenue sharing with. And so this is your administration experience on how the administrator can control a lot of these budget pools, and then how the football team can take all those parameters and really truly make it their own budget. Again, this might be the approach for RevShare, and then you might want to have infinite number of budget pools otherwise. You might have a collective you want to monitor, you might have licensing, you might have alternate payments, etc. Those are all created here. But then this is all really time bound, and so every block on the timeline here has 2 important elements. Number 1 is actually the start and end date, because as we know, coming up with a total dollar figure for a given period of time is actually pretty complex. The cap year starts July 1, maybe the collective's fiscal year starts January 1. This captures all that information and helps you figure out on a given calendar view how much dollars down to the cent do we have to spend to make the most of our roster. And so we do all that dirty math behind the scenes. And so you program in all of the dates that matter as well as the amounts for every budget pool. The budget pools can have fixed amounts, or you can also actually remove max amounts to where if you want to just have budget pools that have infinite spend, i.e. you maybe throw a bunch of collective dollars into a given budget pool and then you retroactively work your way back into it. That is also a setting that is applicable in Dropback. So again, highly customizable to the needs of your program. Now this lays the infrastructure for all of the financial planning that you do throughout the product. Of course, we have our strategy layer, which GMs then use to create data-driven spend decisions. But the way we actually implement all these budgets come into a lot of different facets. First, these budget pools are what is used to actually create contracts with the player. And so as we know, if we're deciding to play Tommy 1.3 million, we might want to strategically allocate that 1.3 into many different budget pools. And so we can see here that these 3 budget pools actually reflect the budget pools we had created in the setup process. So these are line items on the contract, where a contract may have many different periods. Underneath those periods, they might have multiple different budget pools. Every period, the budget pool amounts might be different. And for each budget pool, we also have a pay date associated with that, where we can toggle the amount per pay date to get down to the day cash flow period of how we want to strategically allocate this capital. We work with teams that have, multi-year contracts, might have balloon payments within their contracts. They might go light on payments during the off season, heavier during the on season. Again, all those are strategic levers that GMs can now pull in the new rev share era. And our software makes it very simple to do that in a click and drag way. So with those budget pools from settings reflected on the contracts, there's some key ways where we can monitor this information. Number one is that all these budget pools are also accessible on our roster grid view. And so again, Tommy's addition for all of his budget pools is 1.3. We'd click this expand here and we can actually see all the budget pools for his given contract easily broken out. And we can have that be easily viewed in the entire roster grid where every column is its own budget pool. Number two is actually monitoring those budget pools within our monitors up here. You can always see at a glance the committed versus budgeted amount that you have for every budget pool and how much you have remaining. So you can always make sure that you're making the most out of the amount of capital that you've allocated to a given budget pool. Not only can you view that on a graph-based view here, but there's also a really handy cash flow view where we're actually giving you a day-by-day analysis for every budget pool down to the dollar, how much we're spending on what day, and on October 6th, how much we have left. This is really important when we get down to some of those nitty-gritty days in the portal where we can know exactly down to the dollar how much we have allocated and how much we have left to spend. And it's also really important for tracking against compliance. One strategic lever that some teams we work with pull is balloon payments, where we might want to strategically allocate the pay schedules differently, where Jan 1 you're getting a different amount than March 1. But the problem is that if you just willy-nilly allocate capital to certain dates, you might accidentally overspend per certain compliance parameters. For example, if you do a balloon payment on June 1st, where the cap year is July 1st, you might actually be out of compliance with the cap year, even though you have a contract going from January to December. Again, that's the type of information that a cash flow view and our built-in alerts and monitors would be able to catch dynamically. So once you secure your roster and sign your contracts, you actually want to track the real payments and real cash flow of those budget pools. And that's where the payments tab within Dropback makes this extremely effective. You can think about this experience like an Excel sheet on steroids. Every single column you see here is not only a budget pool that you have programmed into your system, but also every column is a pay date. Again, these pay dates are highly customizable, built by you, and how much in aggregate for that pay date and for that budget pool is being sent out the door. There's obviously tons of different filter and sorts options on this page, as well as a lot of dynamic alerts. One easy thing that we see is that we might sign a deal with a player where we're promising X amount over a period of time, but we might be actually not fulfilling the contractual agreements. The amounts being sent out the door is not exactly what we had signed on paper, and that's where we can actually monitor that information here easily. So it looks like for Jeremiah, we're about $10,000 short. So before payroll runs, I can go ahead and actually add $10,000 back into the total amount. And now no errors exist and we're fully satisfied there. Of course, all this data is actually synced in real time to Dropback's payroll module. We help admin staff eliminate the copy and paste from the strategy system or Excel sheet into the payroll system, risking mistakes upon entry. This actually syncs one-to-one, allowing admins to do a one-click approval process for running payroll. Our payroll is an optional module, so you can feel free to use our module or very easily export all of this data at any time and send to your business office or the payroll platform of your choice. Again, this is just the tip of the iceberg for all the innovative features for our back office automations and in our broader ecosystem of Dropback, the pro-grade front office software built for college sports. Be sure to check out our next demo soon.